Greetings, YouTube verse. I'm having a good hair day, so I decided to record another speaker breakdown. So here's what I did. I decided to put public speaking tips into YouTube and I think I'm going to go through all the pages just to see what we got, to see if there's some quality, or are we just going to have a bunch of like obvious ideas without any execution? I don't know. Let's find out. So on the first page of YouTube, I found public speaking for beginners. And I thought, okay, perfect. Public speaking tips for beginners. This should be the easiest place for us to have like concrete, solid ideas. Let's see what we got. And this is by Alex. See it right there? Communication Coach Alex Lyon. Let's see what Mr. Lyon has in store for us.
In this video, I'll share public speaking tips for beginners. So if
Okay.
you're just getting started in your stand-up speaking experience, this video is for you. So
Perfect.
let's unpack the details.
He looks okay. You know, when I see him, he's a little tight, but he looks pretty comfortable on camera. Oh, he's a PhD.
If you've never tuned in yet, this channel is here to help rising leaders increase their personal impact so you can lead the people around you with more excellence. And today we're talking about communication skills.
This is a flag for me. This is a huge flag because, and I've talked about this in other videos, public speaking is not self-help. Communication is not self-help because, let's be real, most of us aren't spending most of our time speaking in front of others doing inspirational leadership speeches. We're doing quarterly sales reports. We're doing updates. We're doing training sessions. It has very little to do with being inspirational and a leader. And it just has to do with getting the things you say to be remembered. So this is a flag for me. I have a feeling we're going to have like, be concise. Have one key message. And if you're like me, you're like, yeah, no duh. Like, but how? I'm saying that I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Let's see.
Specifically, if you haven't had a lot of experience doing stand-up speaking, I'm going to give you some do's and some don'ts that'll help move you in the right direction.
Okay.
And as we talk about these do's and don'ts,
I want you to watch him for a minute because I want to talk about something. You will notice that as he's talking, because it's already more, he started off very clench. But as he's getting more comfortable, he's kind of getting a bit more relaxed. Here's the thing. If we're just hanging out, having a conversation, you will be moving every couple of seconds. It's just normal. It's only when we are presenting that we get kind of stiff and feel the need to have like expressions and that kind of stuff. But you'll see he's a little stiff, but as he talks, he's going to loosen up. I guarantee it, because this is what always happens. The nerves die down as you speak.
I want you to pick out which ones you think would help you the most, and feel free at any point to comment.
And he's doing less clinching as he's going.
Do's and don'ts. We're actually going to start with the don'ts and then give you the do version of it. So that's the way we'll organize it. So the first pair.
I mean, he looks very. If you're just listening to him, he looks like he says this stuff all the time, and he probably does. This is probably like things that he talks about all the time.
Goes like this. Don't ramble and get long-winded. Anytime a speaker.
Oh, come on. Seriously, dude. I know this is for beginners, but no duh. No kidding. Obviously, like how much more obvious? Here's the thing that you're not getting, sir. And here's the thing that you need to listen to, dear listener. The problem is not that we're like, no one goes into a speech going, I'm going to be rambling and all over the place. The problem is we think we are being clear. And we cannot recognize when we are not being clear. So when you're listening to a speech that's quote unquote rambling, the person giving that speech is not being like, look at me rambling on. They're not thinking that. They're thinking they're trying to be as clear as possible. So this as a concept is just blah, but maybe he'll give us some tactics.
Speaker is disorganized and weaves all around. It's very hard to follow what he or she is talking about.
Yeah, but they don't realize they're doing it. No one goes into a speech saying, I'm going to be as hard to follow. Everyone thinks they're being clear. Everyone thinks they're following a trajectory. How do you recognize it? How do you prevent it? I'm going to wait till after he finishes to see what he says, and then I'll give you some suggestions.
And instead, what you want to do is give a nice organized and concise message. That means you have to take the time beforehand when you're preparing to create a nice introduction, body, and conclusion. Make sure you have clear main points and there's a transition statement between each main point. Your audience is
Why, thank you, Captain Obvious. Like, yeah, okay, listen. Here's the trap. Here's the things why this is not going to help anyone. Be organized and concise. Yeah, as opposed to what? How? Look, yeah, you gave me this little thing right here. Cool. Okay, cool. Nice. You can find this everywhere. This is the most standard. And he says, use transition statements. What is a transition statement? How can I be concise and clear? These are the things we need to know. Not just, that's like saying, be careful. It's useless. It's a useless thing to say because you're like, yeah, but I don't realize when I'm not being careful. And how is that going to affect my behavior? Instead of saying something like, don't walk close to open alleys if you're in a really bad part of town. Cross the street if someone makes you nervous. These are tactics. Where are the tactics? Be concise. Use transition statements. Let's see. Before I give you what I think, I'll give you some strategies to be concise.
There's a transition statement between each main point. Your audience is really going to appreciate an orderly presentation of your ideas, and it's much more likely that they'll remember what you said. And really, that's the whole point of speaking to them in the first place.
Okay, so he didn't really. I mean, I agree, but this is just like the most obvious idea without any execution or any way to make me better. So here's what I'm going to suggest that you all do. Number one, if you want to be clear and concise, what you should do is first do your whole speech. Time it. Whatever time it is, cut that time in half. Whatever time that was, cut that time in half. And then keep cutting it until you have to reduce it down to 1 or 2 sentences. So for example, 5 minutes, and then try and do it in 3 minutes, then try and do it in like 1 minute and 30 seconds, then try and do it in 1 minute, then in 30 seconds, and then try and summarize it in just a few sentences, because that'll give you a core message. With the time constraint, you're going to have to start throwing away stuff, which means you will, without having to be like, what's my key message? You will find a key message. Then when you have just a couple of sentences, that's your transitions. That's your core message. That's what you do. So for example, suppose your key message, you're doing a thing on plumbing and you get it down to this. Coffee doesn't help. It only clogs. People throw coffee down the sinks. Okay. Suppose that's your key message. Okay. I don't know, but suppose that's your key message. So what you would do, I'm going to go back here. You see this guy? You see this guy? What you would do is first you would do this strategy until you get to a couple of sentences. Then you use that sentence in between. You use that sentence in between here and in between here and in between here and in between here. Even if you don't phrase it as a question, you can say, coffee grounds don't help, they only clog. Now I want to come on to my next point. Da, 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 da. So in other words, coffee grounds don't help, they only clog. And then I'm going to move on to my final point, which is, so at the end of the day, when you think of all these factors, the one thing you need to remember is coffee grounds don't. That's a key message. By using the strategy of time, that'll force you to be concise. Because if you have a 5-minute speech and you practice 5 minutes, then 3 minutes, then 1.5 minutes, and then 30 seconds, and then a few words, you will be prepared to be more concise. And 5 minutes is going to seem like too much time. You're welcome. Let's go to the next step.
Look with your eyes in the wrong.
I already know
this.
Next
don't look with your eyes in the wrong places. You want to not look over people's heads or not look at the floor and not stare at the ceiling or scan around like that. What you want to do
is make eye contact
directly into a person's eye.
Dear listener, if I'm speaking to 30 people, how am I supposed to make direct eye contact with 30 people? Did I get everybody? Don't look around, try and make direct eye contact, trying to cover everything. I'm too busy trying to remember what I'm going to say next. And I'm nervous because this is for beginners. So I'm nervous. I'm trying to remember what I'm going to say. And yet I have to like look at everyone as well. How am I supposed to do that? It's impossible. You're speaking to 40 people. The room is dark. You can't see the person in the back. How am I supposed to make eye contact? If we follow this strategy, here's what's going to happen. You're going to look at the same 5 people in the front row, and everyone else is going to tune you out because you're only talking to them. So what can we do about it? I'm going to let him finish. I'm going to let him finish, and then I'm going to give you a strategy about what to do.
Long enough to finish a thought and then move on and look directly into the next person's eyes long enough to finish a thought. One public speaking teacher told me, one thought, one look. In other words, about a sentence or a half a sentence, and then move on to the next person.
And then you lose track of who you were talking to. Or what happens when you make eye contact and the person looks unimpressed? You know exactly what happens. You mess up. And then you keep looking at the person that looks unimpressed, and you get preoccupied with them, and they get way too much of the eye contact. This is why, listen, don't listen to me. Go watch stand-up comics. Go watch late night talk show hosts. Watch them break this rule consistently. But aren't they good public speakers? Aren't they doing something right? Here's what you need to think about, my friends. And I know some of us are speaking a lot virtually. And if you want me to make a video where I tell you about how to do virtual connecting with your audience, comment, okay? But in the real world, suppose we're doing a presentation and there's 40 people in the room, okay? And you want to give the impression that you're talking to everyone, which is really, when we say eye contact, what we're trying to say is I am talking to you. Even if you're in the bleachers up there, I am talking to you. How do you do that? And it's not with eye contact, because dude, imagine if you were like staring at someone right in the eyes and they'd be like, don't put coffee down the drain, it'll clog it. What do I mean by don't put coffee down the drain, it'll clog it? Dude, you would freak people out, and you would sound like you're accusing people half the time. That's weird. Yes, the goal is to make eye contact once you get experience and you start feeling comfortable in front of others. But until then, instead of eye contact, think eye movement. Whenever I go into a room, I try and break the room up into sectors, into little squares. And what I do is I try and make sure that every couple of seconds, I just look at a different square, a different box. And that gives the impression that as I'm talking, I'm looking and speaking to everyone in the room. You do this right before you're talking. Get it, go and look at where you're speaking. Be like, draw a line and draw a line and draw a line and draw a line. And then once you have those little lines in your head, you just start to talk to this box, talk to that box. And the best part is you will give the impression that you're talking to everyone, and you won't have to worry about the distraction of eye contact, because eye contact is very intense. Try this. If you try this with someone, try to do a speech or try to talk about any subject, your favorite show and why you love it. Try and talk about it for a minute, but do it making direct eye contact with someone in the same room. After about 5 or 6 seconds, you'll be spending way more effort thinking about maintaining eye contact than actually talking. And the other person will be spending way more effort maintaining eye contact than actually listening. Because eye contact inherently is a challenge. It means one of two things. Eye contact means I want to fight you or I want to love you. Both are really intense. Yes, you should use eye contact when you start feeling comfortable speaking, or when you're speaking one-on-one or one to a couple of people. But when you are presenting to a group, it is just not practical. It is not feasible. So therefore, instead of eye contact, eye movement. Okay, I got to go chill out a little bit. Listen, this gentleman, Mr. Alex Lyon, he's very famous. He's a very famous kind of trainer. I don't know if he's very famous, but he's very corporate famous. So he's definitely a good speaker, but it's one of these things why there's so many public speaking coaches and nothing changes, and they all teach you to be inspirational speakers, and they don't help you with the day-to-day of communication. Hopefully, using these two tactics, presenting with time constraints and then summarizing in 1 or 2 sentences, using those 1 or 2 sentences as transitions, and then breaking the room up into visual sectors and just trying to talk to different sectors every couple of sentences. Hopefully that'll be a good way. We're going to finish this video, but I'm going to do it next week because it's already getting long. and I need to chill out. I gotta go. Whew. And so we will revisit Mr. Leon and the rest of his do's and don'ts for public speaking in our next episode. Goodbye, dear listener. And by the way, if you like this, remember, I got some courses on Udemy. I just published a course, and it's down here below, about virtual engagement, how to be interesting, how to keep your audience with you when you're talking on Zoom or on Microsoft Teams and that kind of stuff. And if you're interested, check it out. It's just the links down below. Super cheap. Why not? Okay. Bye.